Number 10, and how to be great at client service, is being dependable. An obvious example is someone shows up to your office and you're not there. How can you, maybe even if you're in your office, how can you be dependable so that you can start on time? That's just a simple example of making sure that that person feels like they are special, right? If you're late for a meeting, do they feel special? No. Dependable. And this kind of goes back to being trustworthy. If you say, hey, I'm going to get to something to you by tomorrow, and then you don't do it, you're not dependable, and honestly, you might not be trustworthy because maybe you kind of overfibbed or overpromised, right? So how can you figure out, I am going to be the person that is the most reliable? Honestly, that can go back to setting expectations with your clients. You know, you might want to say, hey, best case scenario, I will get back to you tomorrow morning. I got a lot going on, and I want you to know that you're very, very important. I just think it might take a little bit longer, so I might not get it to you by the end of the week, but I'm going to go all in on trying to get it to you tomorrow. That type of conversation is better than just saying, I'm going to get it to you tomorrow, and then not coming through. From a dependable standpoint, that can mean a whole bunch of things too. You know, are you there for them at any time of day or night? Are you, kind of always there for them? If they needed you to come through in a pinch, would you? And that type of stuff will make you skyrocket in a client service kind of rating system. So let's say they did give you a call at 10 because something really bad has happened to their family and they need your advice on a non-business hour type of setting, and you came through for them, you were dependable, you are going to be just completely rewarded from a client service standpoint. And that stuff's hard to damage, right? You can have that goodwill that carries on for years and years and years. So maybe they will always remember that you were there for them after hours in some way, and then they never leave you, right? So client service can be really impactful. You might get that one little moment to shine, and you know what, you did. Imagine you're out for dinner with your family, and I'm not saying you should do this all the time, but the client's ringing, and you say, hey, family, I hate to do this to you, but I got to step outside and just take this call. And you go out and you spend a couple minutes on a call, and then you're very clear you're out to dinner and you're going to get back to them. But at least just kind of taking the call will allow you to be accessible and actually let them know that you're very dependable, and that will go a long way. Number 11 for being great at client service is to be patient. Honestly, one of my, not my strengths, one of my weaknesses is patience. If you are not a patient person, be careful, because if you're always trying to push somebody to go at your timeline, whatever that might be, and they don't do that, and then you kind of get mad at them because they're not going, maybe it's good for them to go faster, but they're not ready to do that. You have to make sure that you allow them some space. I'll give you an example. Widows, for example, if they lose a significant other and you're working with them and you're giving them advice, there are two different extremes, right? The person that will make their house into a museum and will never change anything when they lost a spouse, to the other person that has a yard sale the next weekend and just wants a fresh start, maybe even moves and changes. To us, we might think one of those is too extreme, or maybe both of them are too extreme and you need some happy medium. But you have to be patient with somebody, right? Because we all go at different paces. And so that's an example of letting your clients go at the pace that they need to go at. Sometimes I get frustrated because I really want to earn my keep as a consultant. And if I don't get to topic A, B, and C in a meeting, I feel like I'm letting them down. And there are times where I don't allow them to go on and on and on a topic, but I have to make a very conscious decision that it's not just my inability to be patient that's doing that. I'm actually intersecting and then maybe pushing them for the right reasons, not just because I don't have the patience to hear them talk about a story over and over and over, because I just heard it in the last meeting and it went on and on and on, and now we got to hear it all over again. The more that you can be patient with clients, the better. Earlier on, I started with education, right, as the number one tip, not the best tip, but the first tip. If your client is not keeping up with your knowledge, you got to slow down. You got to get them to where they need to be, and you got to guide them, hold their hand, and just think about it as a kid. Someone was patient with you at some point to get you to have the knowledge that you have. So what is the right pace? How can you get them to where they need to be? This is something you could even track in your CRM to say, hey, I need to be better at patience when it comes to Sally Smith, my client. There are sometimes people that are just going too fast, and you need to have them get a little bit of patience. Maybe they're not seeing the results they want overnight, and some things you got to be careful about, that you don't overpromise and underdeliver, right? So with patience, what could you do to improve your patience, especially a guy like me, and I know that's probably my number one fault. How do you turn it into a strength? And think about that. All right, I'm picking on myself. This next one, number 12, is remembering. When it comes to client service, it's so important. I can't promise you I'm going to remember everything that I talk to you about in the next meeting, right? Number one, probably weakness, even probably worse than patience. I'm being too honest in this segment. Is names. I can't remember names. Like I cannot wait to get the glasses that I can just put them on. Facial recognition pulls up the client's name. Oh, it tells me all their kids' names, where they live, what their phone number is, everything, right? Like just that, maybe that little chip that goes in our brain that actually helps with our ability to remember. I can remember weird things though. I can remember, something they said from 5 years ago. And I can remember a lot of different specifics here and there. Some people are photographic people, where they have the photographic memory and they can remember every single thing that they see. Whatever you are, I'm probably sure you can't remember everything. This is where technology is going to be really helpful. Leveraging that can be super important. So let's just say names is something that you're bad at, picking on myself. What do you do to help remember them? If you have a weakness when it comes to client service, make sure that it's on your to-do list to get better at it. It can be part of your business plan, right? I mean, maybe you have your own individual business plan. But there are all kinds of things that you can do to remember someone's name, for example. Word associations. You can make a name association. Oh, if that person's name is Brian, wow, I have a connection with other Brians, and I need to think about that. You can kind of write it down. That's a wonderful way. Sometimes I go off on tangents about coaching baseball. I have an example from last night. I actually now kind of get really organized with the strategy for the game, and I put on there a blank thing that says umpire's name, and I write it down. I get the clipboard. I write it down now because in the third inning, I've already forgot the person's name, right? So last night happened to be a Brian. I just used Brian as an example that reminded me of the story, but rather than saying, hey, Blue, or not even saying his name, I said, hey, Brian, can I ask you about something? Completely way more open to it, right? Like kind of diffuses a situation just to know their name. So hopefully you know your clients' names, you know who's coming in, but do you know every single person that they've ever brought up? Whether it's a referral that they gave you, whether it's their grandkids or their kids or the person, the teenage girl is dating. Like, are you good or bad at that? I can't say that I'm perfect at it. So I have to leverage technology, or at least the old pen and paper. So if that's something you need to improve on, make sure you make an effort to do so. So number 13, I just hinted at it a little bit, but utilizing technology. I think probably besides some of the people skills stuff, technology is going to help, and it's going to only make us better at every single thing. To be customized, for example. Now technology is going to allow you to do that. To have reminders so that you don't forget some of those touch points. That technology is going to be wonderful at that. So now you might have a workflow, and you might get a little to-do that pops up on your calendar if you're using your CRM, your contact management system, the right way. But what if AI can actually kind of monitor what's going on with your clients and actually trigger things that would allow you to have an extra touch point at the right time and be able to say, hey, AI picked up that something happened on Facebook and says, hey, maybe you should check in on this. And then you maybe would have missed something that was out there. That type of technology is going to come, right? I don't know if it's going to be just with Facebook. There'll be other different things, but technology is going to make you so much better at what you do. Now break it down. Your core competency when it comes to client service is X, right? Write it all down and say, hey, here's how we are the best of the best, and these are the 15 things, making up a number. Well, imagine 4 of them can be completely customized, and right now they're not. Or 4 of them are going to be completely automated by technology. Well, guess what? Now you've taken 4 things out of your 15 that you don't need to do anymore. And other companies, you're not going to have a competitive advantage there anymore. If there's some service provider with technology that's going to take those things off your list, then you have to shift and be one step ahead of the competitors to say, hey, all right, now my list is 11 things of what I do to be better at my customer service. What can I do to maximize those 11? So be open to utilizing technology. Be open to using it in a way that we've never used before. Don't think because you check the box doing something all the time and you've done it the last 10 years that way, that's how you're going to do it the next 10 years from now. It's not the case at all. You are going to deliver a different service 10 years from now. I'm pretty confident there'll be some twist, if not a significant twist. So stay on top of technology. I'll do a whole nother segment or segments on AI and technology and how this can be utilized. But really think about where the puck is going as opposed to where the puck is now. Number 14 is being positive. Nobody likes a negative Nelly, right? If you have a routine meeting with somebody and they kind of get to that a feeling that you're always going to be down or always complaining or kind of dismal, that can wear on people, right? And it'll, if your glass is always half empty type of person, you have to be very careful about how you come across, because then people are just not going to want to be around with you. There will be some people that disconnect, right? And if you're a negative person and you're dealing with a negative person, you can kind of you'll get stuck in this negative spear that just kind of keeps twisting down and down and down. The old glass is half empty or half full. Be the glass half full. I think that's a good way of trying to be positive. But I actually heard something that was really kind of an eye-opener. I kind of recently heard this, and I never thought about it before. But the glass is always full. So imagine you have a glass that is half empty, half full, right? It's filled up halfway with, so it's halfway with water. What's in the rest? Air, like oxygen, right? So there is something in there, even though it's not showing, you can't see it. So the glass is always full. Like, that's a pretty amazing way to think. If you're a religious person, you can always say you're blessed. You've been blessed in ways that you can't even count. So even in a time where something's going wrong and there's some tragedy, remind them that they're blessed. Remind them that what they're going through maybe is going to make them a better person. Find some way to be empathetic, like I said, and say, yeah, that really stinks, blah, blah, blah. But find a way to make it a happy ending, right? Like, how are they going to get to where they need to be? When you are positive, that actually is contagious, right? So you're smiling, you're laughing, you're maybe telling a joke. There's a time and a place to be serious and maybe sad or maybe angry, whatever it might be. But there are all kinds of statistics of people want to be around happier people. And if you are a happy person and they have a choice to use a competitor or you, they're probably not going to want to leave you, right? Like, they don't want to go to someone that's negative. So try to be positive in everything that you do. And I think that will come across and those relationships will get even stronger. Number 15 that's my final one, to be great at client service is to ask for feedback. Oh my goodness, you're probably sick of me always talking about feedback and client research and all that. But how can you be great if you know all the answers, right? If you are never improving, if there's no way to make something a little bit better, you're not going to keep improving, right? If you kind of always think you're great. So a person that is thinking that have an exceptional client service year after year, they're kind of giving up on the feedback loop a lot of times. And so when that happens, they've missed opportunity that something just got a little off, right? Maybe they got a little too arrogant in what they're doing. Or maybe the industry has shifted, or maybe outside of the industry, things have evolved and they're getting better client service from every type of interaction. Wealthy people, for example, it's kind of competitive when you compare your client service to other types of client services they're getting in other industries. So how do you compete with those types of stuff? And that they're always trying to evolve and be better. So things like technology, they're going to be utilizing those things. And so how do you start to think about how can you open up that feedback loop? I'll encourage you to watch some of the other videos, but I would ask you to just pause and say, do I have an open feedback loop? Am I listening? So one of the tips we talked about, am I actually hearing the words that are coming into my brain, and how am I utilizing them, right? And how do you close the feedback loop? So how do you get back to your clients? Do you pause and say, hey, wow, I never thought of that. I got to take a little time to process that. That would be better than the person that says, you know what? I appreciate the feedback, but we do that. And once you kind of just show that you're not listening to their feedback, don't even bother asking in the future, right? So one of the things that you can be always better at is asking for feedback. Pause and say, hey, I need to put something back in my technology that says in X, Y, and Z meetings, let's just say, not X, Y, and Z, let's just say I got 4 meetings scheduled for the next year. In meeting 3, I have to make sure in the agenda that I ask for feedback, and make sure you hold yourself accountable. Feedback will only make you better if you listen to it. I've said before, feedback is a gift. I don't know where I picked up that nugget, but I can remember back in the day, like getting a performance review even in a job and saying, you know what, that was terrible feedback, and I can't believe the person said that, and that. Coming later on, I heard someone say, kind of a mentor to me, say, no, you know what, that feedback's a gift. Like, that person is trying to, in their eyes, have you be the best version of who they want you to be. Otherwise, why are they giving you the feedback, right? So back on the coaching analogy, if I'm helping a kid with a baseball swing and he doesn't want to take the feedback, is he going to get better? Probably not. The person that is opening to hearing, okay, coach, I'll try that. Or why am I doing that, do you think? And then they'll start to see the way that you're envisioning them improving, and then they'll be that much better at it. So now flip it back to you. If your business is kind of like that kid that has a terrible baseball swing, how can you be opening to getting that feedback? And do you budget for it? Do you make time, etc.? So 15 ways to be great at client service. I couldn't believe I probably could have had 50 things, but I wanted to bubble up to some things that when you're evaluating client service and you know it's super important, are you going through a list like this? Maybe go online and read a couple articles at how companies are really great at delivering client service, and then compare yourself to them. Are we doing something like that? You don't have to take every single idea that you see out there, but kind of boil it down to say, hey, here's the ingredients of why they were great, and then how could I take those kind of ingredients or generic ideas and try to match them to create my own version. If client service is important, and I'm guessing it is, my final thoughts on it are you making a business decision to exceed expectations? Are you doing that? If you are, what are you investing in the next 3 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 5 years? What's your plan to be better at it? If it is core to what you do and how you survive and how you are successful in your organization, how are you holding yourself accountable? What's that feedback loop? What are you doing to always be striving to be better? So that's final thought number 1. Final thought number 2 are identify those areas of improvement. What are they? And okay, if you get something, a nugget where you can improve, how do you actually take that and don't just take a baby step at improving, but really completely break it down, and then rebuild it, and so that your service model is way improved, or your actual one-on-one interactions. One of the things we haven't really talked about too is mentoring, management, ownership, all those, that role that is involved in client service. So how do you get deep into client service to be better? So that's final thought number 2. Final thought number 3 is pretty simple, is answer, how could we improve? Actually, there's some people that will break it down and they try to make changes, but they're just kind of changes on paper. It's not going to ever move the dial or move the needle, so to speak, to get you better at client service. So really have the answer. How are you going to get better at client service? And actually, sometimes that you need a third party to come in and evaluate. Maybe they've had experience at moving the needle, but hopefully they just have some good common sense and can see some stuff that is out of line, and you just got to kind of get back to the right path to deliver what you're trying to do. I don't mean to put this in as a final thought to wrap up the client service part, but getting help is so important. If you are good at what you do, you still should be getting help, right? Because again, like I've said before, we're evolving at such a rapid pace. There are ways to do this, right? So you can read books on different things, all kinds of YouTube segments, motivational stuff out there, going to conferences. A fantastic way to get better is actually create like a study group of other professionals like you and share ideas, best practices. I'm a consultant. Sorry, I got to toot the horn for consultants. Obviously, we make money for a reason, right? So we can come in and help. So consultants, coaches, whoever it might be. Actually, just figure out, where does the help come from? Could it be a family member that can give you advice? Just have someone to always kind of bounce ideas off of. What does it look like? So create a whole strategy around getting help and figuring out what that is, and actually budget some dollars for it if it's important to you. I hope this advice on client service has been helpful. I went through a whole bunch of ideas. Maybe you're great at 14 and a 15, but if there's that one thing that will help you be better, I've done my job. Hopefully there's more than one, but I'm here for you. If you ever want to give feedback, just search Mike Byrnes, Byrnes Consulting, and you'll find a way to get a hold of me. But the reality is, there is so much that we're going to have to keep our eye on in the next few years, and I hope that you stay one step ahead of the competition. Super excited to talk about LinkedIn. I think it is a wonderful tool for networking. I remember when I first learned about LinkedIn, I thought I was a power networker, right? I had a ton of friends, super big family, had worked at different jobs and stayed in touch with people. I was, I had also, I'd gone to school, obviously high school, had gone to undergrad, had got my MBA. And I was really good at talking with people and connecting with them. I actually used to use Excel to kind of stay up with people. I made sure if someone was important to me at any part of my life, I always sent them a Christmas card, so at least they were getting dripped on that. I made an effort to call a lot of people, send emails. Now text messages has made that much easier. But I thought I was a power networker. Then LinkedIn came around. And man, it blew it up, right? At first I was scared to get on it because I was like, oh, I'm going to show everybody my contacts. And now all that work I've done to have such a good network is going to be theirs, right? Like they're going to steal everybody I know or whatever. So I was a little bit hesitant to get there. But that, imagine now they're seeing, I'm going to use a round number, they're seeing your 1,000 contacts. Well, now if all your 1,000 contacts are connected and you have access to their 1,000 contacts, your network has just gone up completely exponentially, right? Like it's blown up overnight. And if you're someone that is pretty good at staying in contact with these people, that's where you can go and say, hey, Jim Smith, he's your buddy from college. I see that you know X, Y, and Z. Would you ever, just send a quick introduction so I could try to get a meeting with that person? That type of second-degree connection thing just goes off. I'm just going to use another random number. So, you go from 1,000 people in your network and then they are all connected to 1,000. Let's just say your connections now are 100,000 people, right? I can guarantee that you have prospects within that base that you have not tapped into. So if you are on LinkedIn and you're not utilizing it, I would really recommend that you put time into how to use it well. Let's do some basic blocking and tackling first. Your profile. Make sure that you have a new photo. People don't want to work with computers. They don't want to work with that little like standard stock imagery. They'll think it's not a real profile. Make sure you put up a good picture. Don't let it get super dated. If your headshot or whatever picture it is has not been updated in 5 years, you know what? You're gonna not make a great connection with a prospect that you meet. It's like dating. Like the person sits across from you, like, this is not the person I agreed to go on Match.com or whatever it is when they saw your online profile. But so back to LinkedIn, like, you know, make sure you're letting them see who you are. Don't be afraid of wrinkles or, in my case, lost hair. Like that's just showing your experience. You know, I think some people are so scared to, you know, show the next evolution of who they are because they like the younger picture. Don't be afraid to do that. You know, LinkedIn is wonderful. When it comes to what type of image should you show on your LinkedIn profile, what's your personal brand? So if you are, you know, a business person, you might want to have a suit and tie or a fancy suit for a lady. For the male, might have the tie. But, you know, it really depends on your target market and that image that you're trying to get across. So LinkedIn is more professional in nature. You might want to have more fun with the other social networks and what you put up there. But there isn't a wrong or right. It's really customized to that personal image that you're trying to get across. I once, it wasn't a client of mine, but the person was really big into owning Harleys and doing tours and going on rides, and actually had gotten prospects from that. And so sure enough, the LinkedIn profile was that person on a Harley. You know, leather jacket, all that stuff. Probably not the traditional professional type of photo that you're thinking about. Another one that I loved was a guy in Hawaii, and he had a awesome Hawaiian shirt, right? Like, so that type of connection, you were like, that's the guy I want to party with normally, right? But his type of clients, his ideal clients, his target market, his niche, whatever, they all made a connection with who he was and how he dressed, right? So make sure that that image is really powerful. Some of this advice applies obviously to your website and your bio page too. But to stick just in LinkedIn, you don't get a lot of opportunities to have imagery, right? So whatever that is, make sure that the lighting is great. I am blessed to be in a great studio with some great lighting. Probably got a little too much reflection on my bald spot, but I'm, you know, I think if I took a picture in this type of environment, it would come out pretty good, besides not being a model, right? But if you actually take a picture at a wedding, and you kind of have one arm over the other person, they're cropped out, or the lighting is off, or the quality of the camera wasn't very good. That stuff can actually, even though the picture might have been the picture that you wanted, right? You were wearing the right thing, you had the perfect smile, but it can take away from your personal brand. So having the right LinkedIn picture is really important, because what do they see when you send out an invite to connect with a stranger? What do they see, right? And the picture's part of it. When you share something and you want people to read your article, your picture's part of it, right? So make sure that that's part of your brand. Another flaw with LinkedIn that I see, besides like having a bad picture or not updating it or whatever it might be, is the connection strategy. The super aggressive marketing people, you know, LinkedIn will change this from time to time, but let's just say right now you can connect with 150 people a month. I'm making that number up, but it's something similar to that. If you are doing that every single month and just connecting with random people that might be in your target market, but just trying to build out your network, throw it out to 150 people, maybe 100 of them say yes. You can build up this gigantic network. But then when you say, hey, let's just pick out a name, like, hey, John Baker, I connected with you and I see that you know this guy, Timothy. Could I get introduced to him? If you're complete strangers, is that person going to introduce you to? I doubt it, right? So there is a benefit. You could probably see who they're connected with, but then where do you go from there, right? So I am not a big believer of connecting with strangers that you don't know. Occasionally we'll do it if it has the person has the right title at the right company and you're trying to penetrate there. If you don't have their email and you can't communicate with them in an outside of LinkedIn type of environment, so maybe you send that invite and you connect with them, and then if they say yes and they connect with you, if they kind of agree and you're connected, make sure you track that, and when you're connected, then you can send them a message, say, hey, this is why I wanted to reach out to you, and I would love to set up that meeting, and then whatever that business purpose was, go from there. The other thing with trying to connect with just a whole bunch of random strangers is, what if that person that really means a lot to you says they want to get connected to someone in your network, and you have to go back and say, I have no idea who that is. I can't remember why I'm connected to them. It's kind of a bad look, right? I guess you could still try to get connected, but then that person never responds. It's kind of a bad experience with the client or whoever's asking for the connection. So you might want to think about your strategy there. I'm a big believer of quality over quantity, but I'll just to be transparent, I'll tell you the other reason that people do that is, let's say you're blasting out a really cool message that would resonate with your target market, and if your network is 500 people, 1,000 might be better, right? You might get more eyeballs on what you're sharing. 10,000 might even be better, right? So if you're a power marketer and you're blasting things out all the time, maybe it does make sense to expand it, but expand it for the right reasons, right? Like, so if you get exposed to people, if you're networking at a conference, you're part of a BNI or Rotary group, or me, I'm Knights of Columbus, or whatever it might be, obviously you want to just make sure you take the time to say, hey, here's all the people I just met. I need to send out a personal connection and get them as part of my network. Always, the other thing I will end on with LinkedIn, and we'll go into more in a future segment, is just because you're connected does not mean that you're like actually connected, right? So you need to actually invest time to communicate with people to stay connected, right? To make those relationships real. There will be people that are your friends that you could reach out to from 10 years from now and they'll still help you, right? But if you are actually using LinkedIn the right way, spend an hour, maybe each week, to say, hey, how are you doing? Long time no see. Oh my goodness, this just triggered a memory of when we used to work together. Or how are your summers? Are you still taking vacations at the same spot? Get just a little bit of a dialogue. If you have some influential people in your network and you actually just invest some time just to make a personal connection, that will actually make you guys stronger and more connected. But then when you do have that ask, it's going to be that much better. If you actually send a message to somebody asking for a favor and you haven't messaged to them in over 10 years, that's going to be terrible. So LinkedIn is another topic we'll dive into more. I am Mike Byrnes. This is another episode of Business Bests. Again, really just trying to help your business become more successful. Can't wait to hear feedback from you if you're tuning in. Let me know, shoot me a message. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in and giving me the time. I really appreciate it.